There's been a surprising Canadian transfer. Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty has left CF Montreal to join New York Red Bulls in a swap and in a exchange deal between the two clubs. And this is a very interesting and very exciting move for Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty, who is still only 21 years old as a Canadian international. This is a big move in his career to finally get away from Montreal on a permanent basis, finding a new home, finding a new club, and a club that wants to support his development in his career. Because yes, he is being talked about from such a early age in Canadian footballing realms, but he is still young at 21 years old, and New York Red Bulls probably sees the potential to use him as a squad player to develop his skills, and then in a year or two time flip him into European football and make a good sum of money off the 21-year-old Canadian international fullback and wingback. But this deal was first reported from the MLS's Tom Bogert, saying New York Red Bulls are finalizing a deal to acquire wingback Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty from CF Montreal in exchange for midfielder Wiki Carmona. And Marshall-Rutty, who is 21 years old, is of course a product of the youth academy in Toronto FC. A player who could never really break into the starting 11, never really to show his quality to properly develop at TFC, but might become one of those players who can flourish away from Canada, away from being in the limelight of CF Montreal or Toronto FC. He's now had 112 MLS appearances between CF Montreal, Toronto FC, and most recently, Charlotte FC, where he had a very good campaign last year. Yes, he wasn't a locked-on starter. He didn't play week in, week out. He was a rotational player who would start some matches, who would come off the bench and play a big impact. But he had 29 appearances last year for Charlotte on loan, having 4 assists, a 6.7 average, was a very good contributor at a young age for a Charlotte side that were challenging at the top of the MLS and playing some very good football under Dean Smith. And now, Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty earns that move away to New York Red Bulls on a permanent basis. This is a player who's been called up for Canadian international camps, most recently to get minutes against Guatemala in Camp Poutine. He's won trophies in the Canadian Championship for Toronto FC, but now getting this move permanently away from Canada, out of that limelight, this is a huge opportunity. But the one thing I don't like about this New York Red Bulls move is this is a side that doesn't have a clear position for him to break into with this squad. Left back is locked down with a fellow Canadian with Raheem Edwards. Right back has been purchased with Justin Shea, a American, a young talented right back. And yes, they play 4-4-2, a 4-4-1-1, or even a 4-2-3-1. There's opportunities to break into that 11. And yes, Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty is a wingback. His game translates very well to fullback or winger at that right mid or left mid position. But they have addressed this squad massively. Brought in a star goalkeeper, Ethan Horvath. Brought in Justin Shea. Brought in a Mexican talented winger who's going to change the squad. You look further up the pitch with Eric Choupo-Moting, as well as Emil Forsberg. This is a quality squad with talent throughout it. And one thing he can learn is off Raheem Edwards. Raheem Edwards, of course, a Canadian international in the past, has shown bright spots within the MLS, and that is the one position that Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty can look to break into. He's been a quality left back, he's been a quality right back, he's shown spurts in each position, and he needs to fight to break into that squad, because there is the areas in positional battles that he has to challenge to win. There isn't a certain spot where he is a locked-on starter. At 21 years old, he shouldn't expect to be a locked-on starter. There's been a lot of pressure on him ever since he was a kid, and he has to go out and win those roles. But for New York Red Bulls, they're gaining themselves a very exciting young Canadian talent who wants to fight, who wants to break into the 11, and wants to earn the respect to be starting for New York week in and week out, and to earn that move to European football. And I think he legitimately can. Showed really bright spots within Charlotte and with one of the best teams in the MLS last season. And if he can translate that to New York, it's going to do a whole host of good. New York has spotted themselves a cheap fee, a good transfer, not to spend big on a young Canadian talent who is going to be a good squad piece, a good rotational player for a big year for the Red Bulls. And if he can translate that, if he can take that game from last year, that confidence he played with in Charlotte, the momentum from getting a Canada call-up and to playing in a national team match against Guatemala, Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty might finally be finding the feet that he needs to break in and develop his footballing game. But we have seen Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty leave behind Canadian football and join New York Red Bulls in an exchange deal for the midfielder Wiki Carmona, and this is a very bright move for Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty, but the fact that there isn't a strong spot where he will be starting makes this for me a C+, a B- type deal. Gets away from Canada and the limelight, but doesn't have a true starting role at New York Red Bulls. But let me know your guys' thoughts down below in the comments, and should Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty have stayed at CF Montreal, or was leaving behind Canada the right move for JMR? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Smash that like button, hit that sub button, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Peace.